Fam, what's going on? It's Kyle Henderson of Bama Football on YouTube. Merry Christmas and to all a roll tide. How's it going? It's Kyle Henderson, Bama Football on YouTube. Got T up in the house. T, what's going on?
Good morning. Merry Christmas.
Yeah, we are hoping that you are all having a nice Merry Christmas. Thank you very much for joining us today. Coming to you from Santa Fe, New Mexico. Today on the show, we are talking about our 10 biggest moments this year under Coach Kalen Deboer in his year one of being the head football coach at the University of Alabama. I hope you guys are off to an amazing start. Please drop a roll tide inside the comment box. Let us know where you're watching from inside the comment box. And then listen up. This is important stuff. Post your favorite all-time Christmas present that you received inside the comment box. T, let's start with you. What you got for your favorite all-time Christmas? You know, we were talking the other day. So T used to get a variety of shotguns, rifles growing up. T, kind of give us the backstory of this.
Yeah, my grandfather. So I'm from Alabama, and every year for Christmas, he would give all of the grandkids a gun. And the older you got, the gun got bigger each year. So it started with like a BB gun and ended with a 270 Weatherby Alt Magnum. So those were my favorite, just because they came from him anymore. So
yeah, T. What about is one of those your favorite?
Yeah, probably the first one. The BB gun.
My favorite Christmas present was a Tecmo Super Bowl. It was a Super Nintendo, but with Tecmo Super Bowl. My mom got that for me. I think it was like 1995. I had to be like in 5th grade. So you've been there. I appreciate you guys joining the show. Post your favorite Christmas present inside the comment box. We did Christmas movies yesterday. I think we tried to hit on Christmas music as well. But I appreciate you guys being here today on the show. 10 biggest moments from this year under Coach Kalen Deboer. I appreciate you guys being here. Definitely, let us know where you're watching from inside the comment box. We'll have T read out some of your favorite Christmas presents. I think a good place to start out this year when you're looking at the year overall is when Coach Saban retired, right? And I want to ask you inside the comment box as well. I want some feedback here, fam, okay? Where were you when you heard that Coach Saban was retiring? T, were we together? Where
we were hanging Lacey's TV.
Yeah, we were hanging Lacey's
right
TV. And I looked at my phone and I saw that Coach Saban had retired. And you look at kind of the overall shock value of that, because I was wondering, like, when would it happen? Would I be in Tuscaloosa? Would it happen? Would I be on an airplane? So Coach Saban, he retires. And, kind of the magnitude of news like that. And I remember, thankfully for me, for my work, I was literally right home. I was home. I was at the office.
Yeah.
So I was able to start streaming. And then we started streaming all day. It became like a factory, right?
Yeah, we streamed for like 72 hours.
But did you believe? Because there's like 2 events where I really didn't believe. One was kind of the passing of Kobe, and then the retirement of Coach Saban.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because with all the fake news, I mean, shoot, we're getting duped with fake news every single day. But in terms of like, did this happen? I still didn't believe it until I really saw it. But then when I started putting everything together, I started thinking, I was like, you know what? There were signs. If you watch Coach Saban, like, he walked off and he waved to the crowd a couple times. He thanked the media. He thanked different people during, kind of his last ride. I don't know.
Yeah.
But that's kind of where we start, I think. And then following that, it was chaotic. And I think when you look back to Coach Kalen Deboer, it's been a long time. I mean, T, can you look up how many days there's been since January 12th? Because think about all the things that have happened since that point in time. And so we start to look at hot boards and, we're chasing down names. Is it going to be, like a former coach that was here at Alabama? Do they have ties to Alabama? Is it going to be someone from the NFL? Who's it going to be? I don't think it was ever going to be someone within the program. So you start to look at kind of hot boards, and when you go back and look to who it was going to be, I don't know if there was any truth to any of these names. I think there were names that were maybe brought up, but I want to say Mike Norvell of Florida State.
Yeah, he was a big one.
Right? People were talking about him, considering that Florida State just had their monster season. I was like, I don't know about this. Dan Lanning seemed like a name, but we never know if he came in.
Lane Kiffin kept getting through.
Right, Kiffin's name, just because Kiffin, and then it was Coach Kalen Deboer. And I think when you found out it was Coach Kalen Deboer, you were like,
who?
You were like, who? But clearly Greg Byrne, and then as he kind of detailed his plan and his executive order, like what to do, they had like a book, what to do if Coach Saban retires, and you open it up. Step 1, right?
Yeah.
And I think in hindsight, Coach Saban probably already shed light into the Washington program the year prior because of the fact that he was going after Ryan Grubb, right? And I think that tells you that Coach Saban, he probably talked with Coach Byrne as well, in turn, or Greg Byrne as well, in terms of the OC that he wanted the previous year, 2023. It was Ryan Grubb who actually, and from my understanding, didn't want to be with Coach Saban, not because he didn't want to coach them, just didn't want to be in Tuscaloosa. And this happened 2 times. And I think that was kind of our first light on Washington. Then Washington makes a national championship game, loses to Michigan, and then you have Coach Kalen Deboer hired on January 12th as, I think, the 20th overall football coach. What were your general impressions to you of Coach Kalen Deboer? And what was your thoughts about Coach Kalen Deboer being hired to the University of Alabama, fam? Inside the Comment Box, Patriot Life, we appreciate you always inside the Comment Box for the awesome gifts as usual. T, your initial thoughts on Deboer.
So initially, I didn't know who he was. I'd never heard of him, but I felt a little better knowing that he was the Washington head coach. And then when I did like a little more research on him, like he's been super successful everywhere he's been, right? Like he's had a winning schedule everywhere. So
yeah, he's certainly been an impactful coach no matter where he's been. I guess the only questions that I had, and I still have up to this point in time, is like he had never coached in the SEC.
Yeah.
And when like you could have success anywhere else in college football, but if you haven't coached in the SEC, it's a completely different level up. And I think he's ready to coach here, but I was curious to see how he would do in SEC environments. And we'll talk more about that as the show moves along. But that was kind of one of my biggest question marks is like, yeah, he did Washington, Fresno State, Indiana, but coming over here was a major jump. And, we saw that this year. There. So on this video, we're going to go over the top 10 biggest moments, and we start with Coach Kalen Deboer being hired. I think the biggest piece that we saw from Coach Kalen Deboer was the fact that you got Ryan Williams to be able to commit, right? He decommitted on right as Coach Saban retired, and then he recommitted, right? And that was like a huge home run for Coach Kalen Deboer. Think about this year without Ryan Williams. It's hard to say. You go back and you're like, what happens? But Ryan Williams is like the guy, the biggest player in terms of, the overall branding, what he did this year on the field. So from an overall standpoint, Merry Christmas to you, Robert, inside the Comment Box. Morty, what's going on? Steven, I appreciate you being here. Thank you so much, for being here. JTL, what's up, man? I appreciate you. So Ryan Williams, you don't get him. I don't know how this season, you probably the same, I would imagine, but you don't have Ryan Williams. And I don't think we understood the megastar that he was going to be at this point in time, right? It's like a different year if you don't have Ryan Williams. So that was really the first home run for Coach Kalen Deboer. So after Ryan Williams, you get Nick Sheridan. I thought what was interesting about this when you kind of go back in hindsight is the fact that Ryan Grubb was supposed to be here. He was never really going to be the OC here, stayed with the Seattle Seahawks. Then you get Nick Sheridan, and you also had Coach Shepard. It was like announced as a package deal, if you remember, right? Jamarcus Shepard and Nick Sheridan. And I think as we've had time to get accustomed to these guys, we are really fond of Coach Shepard because of the energy that he has. And I think we're still a little bit uncertain of Nick Sheridan and how he can operate this Alabama offense. So those are your guys that Coach Kalen Deboer brought in. Of course, Kane Womack on the other side. I think the biggest thing that jumps out when I look to this season, early on specifically, was Alabama's win over Georgia, right? And not only how they won that game, because I know it was closer in the end, but how Alabama dominated Georgia early on in that game. They were up 30-7.5. And I still feel like in my heart, like that was the team that that this team was supposed to be. That's why I think like at this point in time, we know that maybe a championship level team was in them, and we saw it. And that's what made, some of the losses going forward, I guess you could call it gut wrenching, because we saw a championship level team for a half this year. And you know what? I think a lot of teams in college football probably say the same thing. It's like, we saw for a half that we could be as good as anybody. Alabama's as good as anybody, that they are the model every single year. But for that particular half, I was pretty sold on the fact that Alabama was going to win the national championship. Look, and I still feel that if those two if Alabama and Georgia were to meet still, for whatever reason, Alabama just has their way with Georgia. But the things that went on in that game, right? Like Ryan Williams, the emergence and the explosion and those type of plays, like those plays are probably, look, I think as Alabama fans, you look back to plays that stand out. I'm going to ask T, this is easy one. What play stands out before this Ryan Williams to you? Just Alabama football overall. What just play stands out? You're just like, oh my God, this is the craziest play ever.
It would have been, I guess, Tyrone Prothro, like way back then.
So that's bigger than Tua?
Bigger than Tua?
Like Tua to Smitty? Like the 2nd and 26?
No.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So that's kind of what I was leading you to is like 2nd and 26 is like everybody remembers that, right? But like Ryan Williams, what he did that day against Georgia was
Insane.
it's like that should be a statue, right? I mean, look, even Milrow went crazy, right? 374 yards in that game, and we're all believers. And then right after, you lose to Vanderbilt, right? And that was a gut punch because they had so much momentum. We believed in that team, despite Georgia coming back. It was like we equated that to Georgia and Kirby Smart doing a good job in the second half. I think against Vanderbilt, you had so much momentum. You were ranked the number 1 team in the country. Vanderbilt goes up 13-0 off a tipped pass that was returned for an interception. And then at the end, Diego Pavia walks off and Vanderbilt controlled the football for 42 minutes. We had never seen anything like that. And I'll tell you what happened, okay? As a collective society of college football, we were not ready for the parity in college football. Should you have beat Vanderbilt? Yeah, probably. Were you a better team than Vanderbilt? Yeah, probably. But this wasn't the same Vanderbilt team, and I think people are still trying to get used to that. This wasn't the same Vanderbilt team. This wasn't the same type of South Carolina team. This wasn't the same type of Missouri team. Missouri was depleted this year. But my point is, we weren't ready. And this is where we learned a huge lesson. College football is different forever because of NIL, transfer portal, adding different elements to your roster. And during this time, this transfer portal window, we weren't ready for that. And this was a wake-up call in the grim reality that this is new football. There's no more like, Vanderbilt's at the doormat. And it might be better for some people. It might be better for college football in general. I don't know. But we weren't ready for this type of loss. And the way that they beat Alabama, too, they knew. So I don't know if you guys remember this, but, Merry Christmas, Willow. What's up? I see you inside the comment box. Jason Basenberg, what's going on? Oh, he said Gravedigger, too. That was one of the plays. Yeah, Gravedigger that was crazy. Ricky Smith, what's up, man? I appreciate you. But the way that they also beat Alabama kind of provided a game plan to beat Alabama even moving forward, right? And that was to control the time of possession. Did you know this? There was a leaked photo before Alabama and Vanderbilt played. And on the back of the clock, Vanderbilt had time of possession like 40 minutes. So their goal was to hold the ball for over 40 minutes against Alabama.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Huh.
So, and they did that. They held the ball 42 times, and Diego Pavia played the game of his life. In fact, Diego Pavia, as you know, is coming back this next season for an extra year, fought with the NCAA, and he was granted an extra year. That's why we're all kind of watching Justin Jefferson when we talk Alabama football, if he will be coming back. After that game, you look to how Coach Kalen Deboer did against his rivals. And this is always something that is going to be looked at by the administration, by us as fans, by everybody in the world of college football. Tennessee, LSU, Auburn. And Coach Saban always says you're remembered by what you did against Auburn. And that's why when you look to Ryan Day against, Michigan for Ohio State, he can't beat Michigan. You imagine you come in here and you can't beat Auburn? That's unforgivable. So Coach Deboer won a critical game against Auburn towards the back end of the season. And I think they dominated that game for the most part, right? You kind of look to the way the guys played. The playoffs are on the line. You're kind of a playoff bubble team at that point. But going to Tennessee, I think was a real wake-up call for Coach Kalen Deboer. And that's kind of what I was getting at early on is like, there's no way to prepare you for coaching at Neyland Stadium. There's no way to prepare you for coaching in the 3rd October, against the Vols. Like, you're just going to have to learn kind of baptism by fire, understanding the magnitude and kind of the pumped-in crowd noise and all the elements that go into that game. Plus, Tennessee's a good team. So that was another tough loss on the road, right? So you lose 2 times when you go to the state of Tennessee, which doesn't happen here at the University of Alabama. But you rebound a couple weeks later by beating LSU in a dominating performance by Jalen Milrow, right? 4 touchdowns on the ground. Milrow will finish his career. The last 2 times he played LSU, he's ran for a total of 8 touchdowns, right? Then they play Auburn. They beat Auburn. The thing I remember most against Auburn in 2024 is when they tried to jump Devontae Smith. I still can't even believe that happened, and all the fights that happened across the world of college football. In fact, the state of Ohio is trying to make flag planting a felony.
Yeah, that's wild.
Right? It's like, oh my God.
Much,
yeah. What's up, Jamie Gunther? I see you inside the comment box. What's going on? Quincy, I see you inside the comment box, man. Merry Christmas to all, and to all a Roll Tide. I came up with that myself.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah.
Like it.
All right. Okay. The loss to Oklahoma is what knocked Alabama out of the playoffs. It wasn't the Vanderbilt loss. It wasn't the loss against Tennessee. It was the way that they played against Oklahoma, right? And kind of the 10 biggest moments of this year. This is probably one of the biggest ones in terms of on the season play, because you only scored 3 touchdowns in that game. You played poor on offense. You played poor on defense. And that was it. And I think while they did rebound against Auburn the week later, I think that loss stayed in the seating committee's mouth, right? And they looked at how they played in that game on each side of the ball and were beaten by another unranked team. And it was interesting to see Brent Venables after the game. He said these 2 words. He's like, we knocked out Alabama. He didn't mean he might have meant it to mean 2 things. Knocked them out of the playoffs, but like physically knocked them out. And that's the thing, like this year is when we have to kind of get back to that standard. And I would imagine that's part of Coach Kalen Deboer's game plan going forward when he continues to build his own roster, is teams didn't necessarily fear Alabama as they did in the past. I felt like teams felt like they could play with Alabama more so because they have a new coach, right? Like Coach Saban is everybody's daddy, period, right? Let's call it what it is. Like, he owns everybody. And now, the rest of the assistant coaches, they're trying to vie for that king of the hill spot because Coach Saban's there. But Coach Saban's everybody's daddy. And when daddy's gone, it's kind of like, who's running things? That's why I think that teams felt that they could play with Alabama a little bit more. Following that, the one positive thing that despite all the things that you might want to go to and might think of this year, sleep on this. Sleep on the fact that Alabama still finished out with the number 2 ranked recruiting class. And as I was talking about yesterday with that Courtney Morgan interview on Tuscaloosa News, this team, man, the way that they recruited and this recruiting philosophy, this says a lot. And this tells you about the foundational direction of the Crimson Tide going forward. Imagine losing 3 games. Okay, stay with me. Imagine losing 3 games and then losing and then finishing with like a top 12 recruiting class. Can you imagine that? You would have been like, oh man, like this is going to be a bumpy ride under Coach Kent. Look, I still remain very critical of some of the things that happened this season, 100%. But with the same aspect, I like to zoom out too and like see, what else is going on, like in terms of development with the program. And I think when you have a number 2 ranked recruiting class and getting the number 1 quarterback in the country, landing Derek Meadows at the back end of the night, those are like high point things. I have no idea what's going to happen with Ty Haywood, the tackle. Does Alabama need to get him? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when I show you roster management, when we look at the Alabama offensive line, the right tackle is a glaring issue. But the number 2 ranked recruiting class, like don't lose sight of that. Like Coach Kalen Deboer and his staff, they are selling. And I don't know, if you were to retain Caleb Cunningham, I don't think they had a shot to be number 1, but I think it's still pretty impressive. So upcoming, before we get to this, after that, you guys know what happened. SMU made the playoffs over Alabama. And what was so frustrating about this wasn't necessarily the fact that Alabama didn't make the playoffs. Like that wasn't frustrating because I think we all knew, because of the way they played against Oklahoma, they weren't going to make the playoffs. There was some of us were hopeful, optimistic, but what was so frustrating is we knew that Alabama, like straight up, is a better team than SMU, and we knew what was going to happen to SMU against Penn State. There is 0.000 chance that Alabama would have played, if they would have played in SMU's spot, that Penn State would have beat the brakes off them. That just would not have happened, right? I'm taking Alabama to beat Penn State, as a matter of fact. But that was what was so frustrating, is because we knew that the 2 ACC teams that got into the playoffs were not deserving of a playoff bid. So I know that's a war right now on ESPN. I even see like Kirk Herbstreit and Shannon Sharp kind of going back and forth, but it's over. It's like, as Coach Kalen Deboer said in one of his final press conferences at the back end of the season, is like, you can't put that in other people's hands. But then again, as I continue to say, being in the SEC, it's tough. Like, it's designed to be hard. It's designed to have you lose games to be a better team, but that is not what the playoff committee wants in terms of your overall resume. Going into this ReliaQuest Bowl game, Alabama can finish on a positive note. They're, I think, almost a 13-point favorite against Michigan. As you saw yesterday, Justice Haynes is going to Michigan. T, what did you think about that?
Justice, yeah, I thought it was interesting, since that's who we're playing in the ReliaQuest Bowl. It's sends an interesting message.
I think overall, like for Justice Haynes himself, number one, like that guy's a quality individual. Most of these guys are, honestly. Like his parents must be so proud of the
Yeah.
person that he is because he never like Coach Courtney Morgan was saying yesterday. Like Ty Simpson hasn't been a cancer in the locker room. I never heard of Justice Haynes like complaining about opportunities or whatever. We don't hear everything, but he could have went to social media. He could have started complaining. Found a spot that is probably suitable for him playing in the big conference with Michigan. It's kind of ironic. The first time that we really saw kind of Justice Haynes, a couple seasons ago was against Michigan in the Rose Bowl. It happens. He's going up to play for the Wolverines. If you're wondering if he can play in the ReliaQuest Bowl, no, he can't. That would be hilarious.
Cool.
And I'm surprised that college football, being that it's that broken, that it doesn't have some stupid rules like that. Like if you transfer a week before the bowl game, oh my God, I don't want to give them ideas. Yeah. How about this? You transfer 1 week before the bowl game.
Then you can play.
Yeah. And if your roster is under, and if you've lost over 10 transfers, you could play in the bowl game. Can you imagine how stupid that would be?
No, but I think he'll stand out more there.
Yeah, I think he'll be the featured guy. And look, there's a lot of people that felt that he was dancing around too much. And what that means is kind of running east to west and not being physical. Like when you look at a Jam Miller or Richard Young, these guys, what you want your running back to do is to have that east and west, but to go north and south. Yeah. You don't get yards going east and west. You get yards going north. So that means putting your head down, running, and when you have an opportunity to make somebody miss, you have that east to west to make them miss. So I think people were kind of questioning Justice Haynes' north and south ability. But then when he put his head down and buried that dude from Missouri, I think a lot of skeptics were quieted down. That was one of my favorite plays, by the way, this season. So Justice Haynes going out to Michigan, and we wish him the best. And really, all the transfers have now found spots. 14 transfers out for the Alabama Crimson Tide have found landing spots. And when I kind of look at the overall transfers, I don't necessarily see one that I'm like, oh man, that it's going to be a difference maker that they lost. Now, the guys coming in, as we've spoken about, you have 5 transfers coming in. Do I feel that one of those guys is like going to lead Alabama to the national championship? Not necessarily, but I think like Coach Kalen Deboer did in his first transfer cycle, he went to guys that he needed to fill spots on, right? Kelby Collins, you need a bandit. Wide receiver, you got Isaiah Horton because you had 4 wide receivers transfer out. I'm still hoping for a defensive lineman. Look, we're past Christmas, so I don't know. These are like things that you would like to see within the next, 7 days. And I don't know if it'll happen. Maybe it happens after the next transfer portal window, right? Because another transfer portal window is on the back end of the spring. But you need a defensive lineman, defensive tackle, one of the same, and you need a right tackle. Otherwise, you're going to be in the same spot that you're at. Uncle Charles, what's up, man? I appreciate you being here. T, could you read out Quincy's comment?
Yeah, he's saying, come on, Kyle, you act like the offense moves the ball on SMU. SMU, young QB, through those pick sixes, almost 3. Penn State only had 127 yards passing. The defense just got tired.
I think, Alabama I would imagine that Alabama was able to beat Penn State. I think they're able to beat Indiana. I don't know if they'll be able to beat Ohio State, especially the way that Ohio State just played and being at the fact that they beat the brakes off Tennessee. Oregon's probably another team that would beat Alabama just because of the versatility that they have on the offensive side. Uncle Charles, what's up, man? I appreciate you being in the house. He's saying Merry Christmas. Uncle Charles got the love, man. I appreciate it, man. Thank you so much for being here. Kimberly, what's up? And then Patriot Life, of course, being here. Ron, what's going on? Latoya Billingsley, Merry Christmas to all. J. Cole, what's going on? I appreciate you being here as well. Thank you so much. Yeah, this is just our Christmas show. We wanted to come on and just, kind of recap this season. And I think, as we continue to look forward to Alabama, and yesterday we had a video, what will Alabama look like in 2025 with somebody else who can run the offense? I think there's a lot to be positive about, but I'm telling you, look, like it's important for Alabama to win this game against Michigan. I think if you don't, right now you've kind of stabilized your approval rating, and I'm talking about Coach Kalen Deboer. But if you lose this game and you lose this meaningless bowl game, because it doesn't matter anything, you're not going to the playoffs, nothing. But if you lose this game, I think you go into this next season and people aren't happy. because people have the highest expectations when you're covering Alabama football. Look, those are the standards that Coach Saban built and maintained. Okay. And I think, this transitional year was difficult for a lot of people because uh, it's a new world of college football. He didn't make the playoffs. Coach Kalen Deboer is completely different than Coach Saban, but that doesn't mean he's not a good coach. But you got to win on the field. And over here at University of Alabama, like 9 wins isn't going to cut it. Like 11 to 13 to 14 wins. That is the standard over here. So, let's see what happens in year 2. I'm excited for it. I'm excited for this bowl game, to be honest. What is your level of excitement going into this bowl game on like a scale of like 1 to 10? T, what you got in terms of your excitement for the? I'm actually much more excited for the ReliaQuest Bowl than I maybe been given off.
Really? I'd say I'm like at a 6.
Okay. Yeah. I think I'm okay. I thought you'd be a little bit higher.
I'm sorry.
I'm excited because I think it's like a do or die game. I might be the only one viewing this, but I'm hoping that this is like a playoff game for me.
No, I think it's a do or die game too, for sure. Like, I think that.
Do you imagine if they lost?
Game,
yeah.
But I just think it's, sucky we're not in the playoffs, and it, that's kind of it.
I think yeah. I mean, if you lose this game, I mean, it'd be terrible. I think that Coach Kalen Deboer lets them eat, and but the only thing is, it's not going to be like if you're out there and you're like, well, it's going to be like some changing of the guard, and then like they let Ty start running the offense. No. I think it's going to be the same offense that you saw all season. I think it's going to be Jalen Milroe. I think it's going to be his last ride.
Yeah.
Period. And I think it's going to be. If I had to predict the game plan, I think it's going to be heavy Jalen Milroe, some running backs involved, Ryan Williams, as many receptions as possible, and also Jalen Mbakwe, as many passes as possible. Because I think they're trying to keep those guys happy.
Yeah, I take that back. I'm excited because I think they're going to play Mbakwe a lot, and I want to see what he can do.
Yeah. No, that's kind of what I'm thinking as well. I don't think there's going to be any difference in like the game plan. They're going to come out and do anything different. This is the team that they have. Now, as we continue to mention is like, I think Caden Proctor listed as questionable. It was Rivals and 24/7 that say he's not going to play. I don't think On3 has been able to confirm that. So, and he practiced most recently. So usually Alabama football and On3 are like, hand in hand. So we'll see what happens going into the bowl game. We got a question from Old Rock Guy.
Yeah, he's saying, did you know that Saban was 16-7 in bowl games and Bear Bryant was 15-12-2? I want Bama to win, but I think these games have minimal impact given the opt-outs many teams have had.
Yeah, and I keep going back to something that Courtney Morgan said yesterday is he wishes that the transfer portal would be open like when all of the teams are done playing. It's so ridiculous. I mean, these are meaningless games. And that's what's kind of the downside for Alabama playing right now. And it's unfortunate that this is kind of like a gigantic game for Alabama because they don't even have all their weapons. You look at all the guys that left, not to say that those guys were high-level contributors, but, they're down roster numbers. And, Michigan's guys have opted out. But it puts it kind of like in this important exhibition game. I know, I get it. It's weird, Old Rock Guy. Jason Bessenberg, what's up, man? I appreciate you being here once again. And then Chris Cannon, what's up, man? Javion has a question, T.
Oh, Javion. He's saying, so if Nick has another lackluster season as far as play calling goes, does KD demote him or let him go?
I don't know. I think you look to the past. Coach Saban rode with Pete Golding for like 5 years. Nick Sheridan's a young guy. I think we give it to Nick Sheridan to see how he can run this offense this coming season with a different quarterback and a completely different offense. And then we see where we're at the back end of that season. Kalen Deboer seems like a super loyal dude. I don't think that Coach Kalen Deboer or the Alabama administration is going to, let guys go. Under Coach Kalen Deboer, I think he's a loyal guy. A lot of these guys have been with him for a long time. Ryan Grubb, those guys were together forever. This is the first year since 2007 that they're not together. So I would imagine that he just runs with Coach Nick Sheridan for the rest of his career. Probably. Seriously, he's a young guy. He's here. Seems like a loyal dude. That's just my take. I think on the defensive side, Kane Womack probably have opportunities maybe after this next season to go somewhere else. But I think Nick Sheridan will be here for a while. Hey, Steven, what's up? I appreciate you being here. Nicole, what's going on? Merry Christmas. Did we get everybody to post their favorite gifts? Was there
Yeah,
any?
we asked. I saw a couple cool ones. Some people were saying like moon boots, pony.
Someone got a pony?
Yeah, I think it was Ricky.
Ricky
I was
got
like,
a.
every
Are you
kid's dream.
serious?
Yeah.
Ricky got a pony?
Yeah.
Trey, what's up? Merry Christmas to you. I appreciate you being here. Steven, what's going on? Nicole, what's going on? Merry Christmas. Yeah, life is good. In 1959, you got a pony. Wow, that is amazing. Who gets a pony? That's amazing. Todd, what's up, man? Todd is amazing. Todd, I love Todd. Todd's always been here. There's a lot of people, Byron, he's always here. The thing I like about Byron is he gives you some good feedback, win, lose, or draw. Nicole's always up in here. Steven, of course, Trey, Max, Javion, Ricky, Todd, of course. Kimberly. Kimberly's been so amazing.
Yeah.
Kimberly's just ride or die. Kimberly is such a great fan. DeChamp, what's up? Merry Christmas to you. Appreciate it. Yeah, so I know as you guys turn on the Christmas story and you open up your presents with your family and your loved ones, I hope you have an amazing day. I think when you look back on this year, when you talk football, there was a lot just because of the impact that Coach Saban had probably on all of us. Kind of look to him like as a coach. And then this year it was bumpy. It was bumpy. It was good. It was bumpy. There was some adversity this year, but I think when you look to life too, the older that you get, the more that you understand that adversity is part of what makes life so amazing, right? Because if it was always good, you probably would take it for granted. If it was bad, you'd probably always be complaining and blah, 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 right? But I think considering that this year had a lot of different adversity, it makes the wins more savorable. And I think going forward under Coach Kalen Deboer, our biggest question is, can he take the Tide to a national championship? It's hard to be patient in this world because you can just order, whatever you want on Amazon and get it right away. It's easy just to hit the transfer portal and just, hope to play somewhere else. It takes time. Good things take time. And the things that are the best are like right in front of us at this point in time. So, with Coach Kalen DeBoer and his takeover of Alabama football, this is where we're at. And if you zoom out, you'll see a lot more positives than negatives. So I would kind of look back to that recruiting class. I would look back to, some of the pieces that he's added to his staff, like a Courtney Morgan, a Ryan Williams, right? You look to the players that he continues to retain. You look to the players that are coming back next season, like a Deontay Lawson, if he decides to, a captain, right? And new captains that will emerge this coming season, like, on the offensive side, you're going to continue to see elevated roles from like a Jeremy Bernard, a Jan Miller, an emergence of Richard Young, and offensive linemen like a Caden Proctor who's coming back. So there are positives, but I do think it's a must-win game against Michigan. So I appreciate you guys for being here on our Christmas show. I hope that you have an amazing day. And thank you for rocking with us, whether it's Christmas, whether it's New Year's, whether, it's on Saturday or Sunday or as news happens. We really appreciate you guys. And we hope that you have a Merry Christmas with your loved ones. From Kyle Henderson, Bama Football on YouTube, from T, from my family to yours. Merry Christmas to all, and to all a Roll Tide. Stick around as news happens right here on Bama Football on YouTube. I love you. I appreciate you. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll catch up with you next time right here on Bama Football on YouTube. See you guys.